I raised her with trembling hands and borrowed hope now. She won't even look me in the eye. One minute I was standing by the punch bowl trying to smile, and the next I was outside in the cold, surrounded by trash bins and echoes of laughter that didn't belong to me. I'm Walter Bishop, 74 years old. Used to work as a machinist in Detroit, built engines for 29 years before my hands gave out and my back followed. I never imagined I'd become a stranger at my own daughter's celebration. But there I was that Saturday night, just a shadow outside her glowing life. Julie, my only child, had just been promoted to senior vice president at the firm. It was supposed to be a family milestone. I put on my one good jacket. It smelled of mothballs and old dreams, but it was the best I had. I got there early, helped the caterers set up, even carried in the extra champagne crates. My fingers ached, but it made me feel useful. Then the guests poured in. Young people in tailored suits and silk dresses. They looked at me like I was the janitor who wandered too far. Julie barely acknowledged me. She smiled for the cameras, clinked glasses with her bosses, took selfies with interns. I stayed in the corner, sipping ginger ale, clutching a gift box that held a gold-plated pen I saved 3 months to buy. Finally, I walked up to her. I said, "Congratulations, sweetheart. I'm proud of you." I handed her the box. She didn't open it. She just gave me this look, like I'd stepped on her dress. "Dad," she said under her breath, "can we not do this right now?" Then it happened. Her husband, Mike, came over. He always hated me, said I was stuck in the past. He whispered something to Julie, and she nodded. Then she turned to me, took my arm, and smiled like she was posing for a photo. "Dad," she said sweetly, "why don't you head out? You've been on your feet too long." I blinked. "What?" "There's an Uber waiting. I already paid for it. It'll take you home. But I haven't had cake yet." She chuckled nervously, then turned away before I could say more. That's how I ended up outside the hall, sitting on the curb next to the garbage bins while the wind stabbed through my jacket. I held the unopened gift in my lap like a piece of me she didn't want. I would have left. I really would have. But then I heard his voice. "Grandpa." It was Liam, my grandson, 14 years old. Tall for his age, still had that shaggy mop of hair no one could tame. "What are you doing out here?" he asked. I tried to smile. "Just catching some air, buddy." He frowned. "They told me you left." I didn't answer. I couldn't. He looked down at the gift box in my lap. "Is that for Mom?" I nodded. He took it gently, opened it. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "She'll love it." I didn't say anything. Then he did something that changed everything. He stood up, walked back toward the hall, and without hesitation, pushed open the doors like he owned the place. I followed him with my eyes through the glass. He walked right up to the stage where Julie was giving a speech. Tapped her on the side. She flinched. Then he took the microphone. No one saw it coming. "Can I say something real quick?" Liam said into the mic. The room went still. Hundreds of heads turned. Even the music faded. My mom is amazing. She worked hard for this. But tonight I learned something else she forgot who helped her get here. Julie's smile froze. Liam turned to her, then back to the crowd. "This man," he said, pointing to me through the window, "raised her alone. Worked until his hands broke. Paid for her school. Gave up everything so she could have this party." Silence. Julie's cheeks turned a furious shade of red. "He gave her that pen," Liam said, holding it up. "But she told him to leave before cake. So maybe we should all think about what success really means." A wave of whispers surged through the room. I didn't move. I couldn't. My heart thumped against my ribs like a drum. Julie tried to grab the mic, but Liam stepped back. Then, without another word, he walked back toward the door, pushing through stunned partygoers. When he reached me, he held out his hand. "Let's go home, Grandpa." I stood. My knees ached, but I felt taller somehow. I took his hand. We walked down the street under the city lights, just a tired old man and a boy who reminded him that dignity wasn't dead yet. Liam asked a lot of questions on the ride home. About my job, about his mother's childhood, about the things we used to do. "She never talks about you," he said. "She doesn't have to," I replied. "I didn't raise her for praise. I did it because I loved her." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Well, I want to know. I want to remember. We spent that night in my small apartment." He didn't want to go back. I heated up some leftover stew. He said it was the best meal he'd had all week. Funny how stew and silence can heal more than applause and champagne. The fallout came the next morning. Julie showed up at my apartment door in sunglasses and fury. "How dare you let him humiliate me in front of my entire company?" she hissed. "I didn't," I said calmly. "He chose truth over comfort. You taught him to be bold. You just didn't expect him to aim it at you. You're unbelievable." "No, Julie. I'm just old. And tired. And finally, done pretending." She looked around my apartment like it was a crime scene. Then her eyes landed on Liam, who was sitting at the table, eating toast. "Come on," she said to him. "We're leaving." He shook his head. "What? I'm staying with Grandpa for the weekend." "You're not." "I am," he said firmly. That was the moment I knew everything had changed. Julie didn't say another word. She just stood there, lips pressed into a tight line, her hands clenching the designer handbag like it might split in half. Then, she turned and stormed down the hall, heels clicking like gunshots on the tile. The door slammed. Liam didn't flinch. He just looked up at me and said, "Do you still have that old deck of cards?" I smiled. We spent the rest of the afternoon at my kitchen table, playing gin rummy, listening to Johnny Cash on the radio. The air was thick with something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Maybe redemption. I didn't know how long it would last. But that day, I stopped feeling ashamed of being alone. The phone rang around dinner time. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me to pick up. "Mr. Bishop?" "Yes." "This is Meredith Lane. I'm a columnist for the Detroit Herald." My stomach nodded. "How did you get this number?" "There was a video of your grandson's speech last night. It's gone viral. Over 3 million views. I'd like to do a piece on you on your story." "My story? About raising your daughter, the sacrifices, what happened at the party." "People are calling it one of the most powerful moments of the year." I rubbed my forehead. "I don't think I'm the story here, ma'am." "But you are, Mr. Bishop. You're the part people are connecting to." I looked over at Liam, who was dozing off on the couch with a book in his lap. "You'll have to let me think about it," I said. "Of course. I'll follow up tomorrow." When I hung up, I sat in silence for a while, letting her words settle in my bones. I wasn't sure if I wanted that kind of attention, but a tiny voice inside me whispered, maybe it's time people saw the man behind the silence. The next day, Julie sent a long, carefully worded email. It was full of terms like miscommunication, public embarrassment, and unforeseen consequences. It read like something her firm's PR team helped draft. She didn't apologize. Not once. But at the end, she wrote, "I'd prefer if you didn't talk to the press. We don't need more attention right now." I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to be spiteful, but because, for the first time, I realized I didn't owe her anything, not silence, not protection, not my voice. Liam, on the other hand, gave me something better than any statement. That morning, he cleaned out a corner of my hallway closet and stacked it with his things. "I want to spend weekends here," he said. "Like every weekend. If that's okay." My eyes stung. "I'd like that very much," I said. The article came out a week later. Meredith called it "The Man Outside the Party." It wasn't sensational. It was honest. She wrote about my late wife, about raising Julie alone after the accident, about working double shifts to pay for her education, about the long nights, the missed meals, the worn hands that built a future. She ended the piece with a quote I didn't remember saying, but must have whispered somewhere between one of her questions. "You can survive being forgotten. What hurts most is knowing you weren't even worth remembering." It hit a nerve across the country. Letters started arriving, some digital, some handwritten, from men and women who'd been abandoned by their children, from grandkids thanking their grandparents, from strangers who said they saw their own father in me. One morning, a nurse from Minnesota wrote, "My dad hasn't spoken to me in 6 years. After reading your story, I sent him a photo of me and my daughter. He called me back. Thank you." I read it aloud to Liam. He didn't say anything, just gave me a thumbs up and passed me a grilled cheese sandwich. Julie didn't take it well. She called again, this time angry. "You made me look heartless in front of the whole country." "I didn't make you do anything," I said calmly. "You did that all by yourself. You could have stopped that article." "Why would I?" "Because I'm your daughter." I let that hang in the air for a second. "And I was your father," I said. "Still am. But that didn't stop you from leaving me in the alley like a stray dog." There was a pause on her end. Then, "You're just trying to make me feel guilty." "No," I said softly. "I think guilt found you all on its own." She hung up. That night, I stood on the balcony, looking out at the city's flickering lights. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel bitter, either. I just felt still. Weeks passed. The attention slowly faded. But something else bloomed in its place: connection. I started getting invited to speak at schools, retirement centers, even a few churches. Not to preach, but to talk. To share my story. Not just the party part, but the real part about how love can be forgotten, how dignity can be taken, and how sometimes the loudest thing you can do is not leave. At one community center, after I spoke, an older man came up to me with tears in his eyes. My son hasn't called me in 4 years. After tonight, I'm going to write him a letter. I don't know if he'll read it, but I'm not going to stay quiet anymore. I shook his hand. We stood there for a long time, two old men holding decades between them. Liam was changing, too. He asked deeper questions. He brought over school essays and asked me to proofread. One evening, he knocked on my door with a folder in his hand. I'm writing a speech, he said. For school. They're letting me present at assembly. What's it about? You. I swallowed. You sure that's a good idea? I'm not asking for permission, he said. I just want you to be there. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The school auditorium smelled like old varnish and new sweat. Students shuffled in wearing backpacks half their size, chattering about grades and TikToks, unaware that something different was about to happen. I sat near the back, hands folded, trying not to look out of place. But a few teachers nodded politely, and one even said, "You must be Liam's grandfather." I simply smiled. The principal gave a brief introduction, then called Liam up to the stage. He looked small behind the podium, but his voice was anything but. "My name is Liam Bishop," he began, clear and steady. "I'm here today not just as a student, but as a grandson. And I want to tell you about the man who showed me what real strength looks like." He talked about the party carefully, without shaming his mother. He talked about my past, about how I worked late hours and ate cold dinners so Julie could have warm ones, about how I showed up when no one else did. Then he said something that made my breath catch. There are two kinds of people in this world: the ones who build ladders for others and the ones who forget who built theirs. My grandfather never asked for thanks. But today, I want to thank him anyway. Silence. Then applause, slow at first, then building into something loud and true. Some students even stood. I wiped my eyes and looked around, trying to memorize everything. The scuffed stage. The sunlight through the dusty window. The boy on the platform becoming something more. Liam looked at me and smiled. After the assembly, students came up to shake my hand. One girl asked if I had a podcast. I didn't even know what that was. A teacher invited me to speak at a Father's Day luncheon next month. But what struck me most was the look on Liam's face, not pride, exactly. Something deeper. A kind of peace that said, "Now they know." When we got home, he threw his backpack on the couch and said, "I meant every word." "I know," I said. He sat down beside me. "Do you think people can change?" I nodded slowly. "If they want to." "What if they don't?" "Then you love them anyway. Just maybe not from the same distance." That weekend, Julie called. I let it ring 3 times before I picked up. Her voice was tired. Not angry this time, just tired. "I saw the video of his speech," she said. "It was beautiful. He meant it." "I know." Silence. "I'm not good at this," she said quietly. "At what?" "Being whatever kind of daughter you deserved." I looked at the wall, at a photo of her as a little girl in overalls, holding my hand in front of the old Ford truck. "I didn't raise you for perfection," I said. "I raised you to be kind." I forgot how. "Then remember." She sniffled. "Can I come by? Do you want to visit? Or do you want to make it right?" "Both." "I'll be here," I said. She came the next day. Not in heels. No, Liam was at a friend's house. It was just us. She stepped inside slowly, eyes scanning the room like it had changed. "You kept all this," she said, picking up a framed drawing she made in 3rd grade. "Of course I did." She sat down on the couch and stared at the carpet. "I'm sorry." 3 words. Simple, quiet, and 17 years late. But they cracked something open in me. Not anger. Not grief. Just space, room for us to begin again. "I forgive you," I said. Then she broke. Shoulders trembling, face buried in her hands. The kind of cry you don't plan, the kind that comes when the weight of years finally gets too heavy. I walked over, sat beside her, and put a hand on her back. We didn't say anything more. We didn't need to. The next few weeks were slow and careful. She didn't become a different person overnight, but she started calling. Dropped off soup once. Came over for lunch on a Sunday. asked questions about my life that she'd never asked before, what I dreamed of as a kid, what my mother was like, what I feared at night. She cried when I told her how many birthdays I'd spent alone. I didn't know, she said. I didn't tell you. But I should have asked. Yes, I said. You should have. But I said it without bitterness. That was gone now, replaced by something quieter. Something like release. One evening, she asked, "Why didn't you ever remarry?" I smiled. Because I never stopped loving your mother. Julie looked down at her hands. Was she proud of me, do you think? I nodded. Every day. Even when you weren't proud of yourself, I didn't say that part aloud. But I think she heard it anyway. One Friday night, after Liam went to bed, she stayed behind. We sat in the kitchen drinking tea. The air smelled of mint and memory. I'm scared, she said suddenly. Of what? Of losing him. Of him loving you more. I reached across the table, took her hand in mine. You didn't lose him, I said. He found me because you built him strong enough to know something was wrong. That's not failure. That's legacy. Tears welled in her eyes. You really think so? I know so. She held my hand a little tighter. Thank you. There are moments you don't realize are miracles until later. That was one of them. A daughter, an old man, a kitchen table. Nothing fancy. No chandeliers, no champagne. Just forgiveness poured quietly between two chipped mugs. And it was enough. A few days later, Liam came to me with a sheet of paper. Can I read you something? Of course. He cleared his throat. It's a short story. For English class. About the party. I sat down, heart tightening. He read slowly, carefully. There was once a man who worked with machines. He wasn't famous. He wasn't rich. But every morning he tied his boots, washed his hands, and walked into the world like it didn't owe him anything. One day, the world forgot about him. His daughter, the one he loved more than air, chose applause over presents. She didn't mean to hurt him, but she did. Still, he didn't curse her. He didn't disappear. He just sat quietly and let time teach her what he never could. And when her son spoke truth, the man didn't gloat. He didn't cheer. He simply stood and walked home, proud not of what he had lost, but of what he had passed down. Love, even when buried, still breathes. When he finished, I couldn't speak for a moment. My voice had caught somewhere deep in my chest. That's beautiful. I finally managed. He smiled. You think I'll get an A? I laughed. You'll get more than that. He looked away shyly. You know, Grandpa, I think you're the first man I've ever really admired. I blinked hard. And you, son, are the first man I've truly felt seen by in a long, long time. He didn't hug me. He didn't have to. The silence between us was loud enough. The seasons began to change. Spring inched into summer. The city grew warmer, louder. The ice cream truck returned to the corner. I watched from the window as kids ran past, laughing, spilling sprinkles on the sidewalk. I noticed how Liam lingered when Julie picked him up now. How she didn't honk anymore, but came up to say hello. Sometimes brought groceries. Sometimes sat for dinner. We started watching baseball games together again. The Tigers weren't winning much, but that didn't matter. We had our rituals: roasted peanuts, lukewarm beers, for me, orange soda, for Liam, and that same old couch with the worn-out cushion. And sometimes, just sometimes, I caught Julie looking at me like she was remembering something good. Like she could finally see me again. One night, she came early before Liam's visit. I wanted to come alone, she said. There's something I've been working on. She opened her laptop and turned the screen toward me. It was a draft of a memoir. On the first page was the title. The Man in the Jacket, How My Father Built Me. I stared at it, my eyes suddenly wet. You're writing this? She nodded. It's not finished, but I needed to tell it. Not just for you. For me. She bit her lip. I don't know if it's any good. It's more than good, I whispered. It's true. We didn't say much after that. We didn't need to. Some words don't belong in the air. They live better in the heart. One afternoon in early June, we took a drive. Julie offered, said she wanted to go somewhere quiet. We ended up at Riverside Park, the same one she used to ride her bike through as a girl. The benches hadn't changed, nor had the smell of cut grass and cotton candy from a cart that always looked like it came from a different century. We walked slowly, my cane tapping gently beside her heels. She stopped near a bench and said, I used to wait for you here. After work. Remember? I nodded. You always brought me a peanut butter sandwich. Every time. It was the only thing I could afford. I never told you it was my favorite part of the day. My throat tightened. Why didn't you ever say so? I think I thought I'd have more time. I thought parents were like light switches, always there until one day they're not. I chuckled softly. Well, I'm still flickering. She smiled and sat beside me. For the next hour, we watched the river flow by. No pressure, no explaining. Just a father and daughter existing in a moment neither of them ever thought they'd have again. When we stood to leave, she reached for my hand. I love you, Dad. This time, I didn't flinch. I love you too, sweetheart. As we walked back to the car, she added, almost as an afterthought, you know, the company's doing a community spotlight feature this fall. Oh, they asked me if there was anyone who inspired me. I gave them your name. I stopped. What would I even say? Whatever you want. It's just a few minutes on camera. But I think people would want to hear it. I thought about it for a second, then nodded. All right, but I'm not shaving my beard. She laughed. Deal. That night, Liam and I sat outside on the balcony. The city lights shimmered like stars lost on the ground. He turned to me. What would you say if they really asked you? To the camera? Yeah. I leaned back in the chair, let the breeze roll over my face. I think I'd say sometimes love doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers, even when it hurts. And sometimes the greatest thing we ever do is stay when we could have walked away. He nodded slowly. That's a good line. It's the only one I've earned. He leaned his head on my shoulder. No words, just warmth. And in that moment, I realized something. Even if nothing else came, not the interviews, not the applause, not the apologies, I had already been given the greatest reward. I had been seen, and I was loved. The company camera crew showed up on a cloudy Tuesday morning. I wore my cleanest shirt, light blue, pressed the best I could in. Julie brought over a haircut kit to trim the wild hairs on my neck. She fussed over me like a nurse who'd just remembered the patient was family. You look sharp, she said, stepping back. I look like a retired accountant, I muttered. Exactly, she grinned. Liam sat on the arm of the couch, swinging his legs. Don't get nervous, Grandpa. Just be yourself. That's the part I'm nervous about. They set up the camera in my living room, near the bookshelf Julie bought for me years ago, but never saw filled. I'd since filled it mostly with secondhand novels, old photos, and a few dusty trophies from bowling leagues long past. The cameraman adjusted the lighting, then nodded. You ready, Mr. Bishop? I took a breath, let it out slowly. Go ahead. The red light blinked on. I'm not an extraordinary man, I began. Never had much. Didn't finish college. Never wrote a book, never won a medal. But I did something I think mattered. I showed up. I paused. When my wife died, Julie was only 6. I didn't know how to raise a little girl on my own. I didn't have a clue what barrettes were, or how to braid hair, or what to say when she cried for her mother in the middle of the night. But I showed up. Every day, every moment. My voice cracked. I missed promotions, missed poker nights, missed sleep, but I made her lunch every morning. Sat in the bleachers at every school play. Waited in the rain outside dance class when she forgot her coat. I did it because I loved her, not because I wanted thanks. I looked into the lens. But somewhere along the way, she forgot. And for a while, that broke me. A pause. But life has a funny way of circling back. Sometimes, all it takes is one voice of me, grandson STO, remind people of what's real. Another breath. If I have any advice, it's this. Love your people while they're still around to hear it. Say thank you to the ones who built you even if their hands are old and shaking now. We don't last forever, but love can if you let it. The camera clicked off. The room was silent. Julie was crying. So was Liam. And for once, I didn't feel ashamed of my tears either. The video aired 2 weeks later during the company's internal spotlight series. But someone posted it to social media and again, it spread. Not with the same firestorm as the first, but slower, deeper, more lasting. People wrote again. From all over. A fire chief in Boston sent a letter saying he replayed it to his cadets. A young woman from Ohio said she watched it with her estranged father and they both cried. One man from Kansas wrote, I walked out on my dad 10 years ago. I just called him. We're meeting for coffee next week. I saved them all. Every word. Printed and tucked into a small leather folder I kept on my bookshelf, just beside Julie's draft manuscript and Liam's story from school. They were reminders that quiet lives still matter. That a man with nothing more than a toolbox, a dented coffee mug, and a heartbeat can change people he'll never meet. Julie came over more often now. Sometimes just for tea. Sometimes with groceries. Once, she showed up on a rainy night just to sit beside me in silence. We watched the rain together, and she whispered, "I still have the pen. The gold one." She nodded. I never used it. It felt too heavy. It was meant to be. A long pause. "I want to be better," she said. "You already are," I said. "It just took time to see it." She smiled. "You always gave me more time than I deserved." That's what fathers do. In late August, we went out to dinner, Julie, Liam, and me. Just the three of us. It wasn't a fancy place. Just a diner near the edge of town with vinyl booths and waitresses who call you hon. I used to take Julie there after doctor's appointments when she was little. She remembered the Jell-O parfaits. She ordered one just for nostalgia. We laughed a lot that night. Told stories. Teased each other. Liam made fun of my old flip phone. Julie admitted to sneaking out once in high school, something she'd always denied. And when the check came, Julie slid her card in before I could reach mine. "My treat," she said. "You sure?" "Dad," she said, "let me give you something back." For once, I let her. I turned 75 in September. They threw me a party right in Julie's backyard. No tuxedos. No sponsors. Just homemade sandwiches, folding chairs, and neighbors who brought more pie than sense. I sat under a string of warm lights as Liam handed me a wrapped box. Inside was a new watch. "Digital," he said. "So you stop asking me what time it is." I laughed. And then he handed me something else smaller, older. "My gold pen." "You sure?" I asked. He nodded. "Now I think you should use it." I held it like a relic, then pulled out a napkin and wrote, in shaky cursive, "Thank you." That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the yard. The moon was bright. Crickets sang in the bushes. I leaned back in the chair and looked at the stars. For the first time in years, I didn't feel forgotten. I felt full. Full of days that mattered. Full of faces I loved. Full of mistakes that had been healed, not erased but carried better. A wind passed gently through the trees, like someone whispering, "You did all right, Walt." And I whispered back, "Yeah, I think I did."